Hey, hey, hey. What's good, sister?
Yeah, I work from two different things, so thank you for agreeing to come and share so we are so grateful for that. So I am Dr. D from 963B for You channel. I'm hoping everybody sits tuned or want to take a journey. We're going to take a journey from Florida, Chicago, all the way into Colombia, and then some. We are going to be amazed and let's see what is the best word to put it. Amazed, educated, and enlightened about the conversation we're about to have. So, this is none other than Maximum Prophet, aka Barefoot Walking Yogi. Do I got it right?
Yeah, that sounds like that. Actually, it's the outlaw yogi for that matter.
Damn,
For
bro. Go
I
ahead.
got to say, first and foremost, I just want to just say that it's an honor to be here to share space with you in the virtual realms, in reality, in this moment in time and space for us to have this conversation and connection and exchange. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I got to do one more thing. For people out there that are live, I am about to open the lines. So the number is, same thing I got to call, is 667-770-1389, and you press 748894 if you want to speak. So this conversation is live. So I will open up the line, and this is what I gotta do. I gotta call just like you do to get into the room, and it's all good. Oops, take that back. So we're about to be live online. This service is provided in high definition by free content.com. Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign. So, now see, this is live, as my girl would say, in Memorex. Access code accepted. You are the only participant in the conference. Of course, I just opened the lines. So, okay, beautiful people. I'm gonna turn the music down, and that's what goes on because I don't want to get any copyright information people going on because that's what they'll say. It's a copyright thing.
Mm.
Now, is there any way you can get better light? Because all I have is a dark screen.
Okay, let's see. I don't know. I don't know if that's any better. I could. Let's see.
There you go.
That's better. Okay.
That is so much better. So we actually have a person.
Yes, I am not AI.
We got to be careful with that.
Oh,
So I want you to talk to everyone about how you started, like where you come from, like where were you born?
you know what? Off the top, I was born and raised Brooklyn, New York. Um, in terms of where I come from, to be honest, that connects directly to my father. In terms of the way I was raised in a I'm Taino, Afro Taino, Arawaco, Cimarron, maroon. So I grew up in a house of rumba, meaning it was a house of spirit. My father was a spiritualist, and he was also a spiritualist. Mesa Blanco is what it's called, and then he was also a santero. So in my household growing up, it was just normal to have my parents, my mother and my sisters would do a physical cleaning of the house. My father would do a salmario, a spiritual cleansing of the house. He would take his baths and his herbs, using his tobacco. We would have animals, living in our backyard in Brooklyn,
Nice.
chickens, pig. I don't eat pork, but anymore. But goat, sheep, pigeons on the roof. So we had. I grew up kind of like connected to the old ways. Although I was in Brooklyn, the idea of planting the seed, having our little garden, and what my father would do in our house was every Sunday there would be a gathering, and that gathering would be people coming to sit down with him and have what's called a consulta, which is a spiritual consultation. He was a prophetic dreamer, so I come from a house of dreamers as well. So in the midst of that, there would be the band, there would be music, there would be food, animals slaughtered, family, and then of course the consultas that were going on, the consultations downstairs. So I grew up in the midst of this. However, I never asked my father about it. I never questioned, what is this, or whether this was normal. To me, it was normal, and So anyway, long story short, with that, at the age of 11, 12, my father was retiring, and we moved to Puerto Rico. We would go there every year, but there was a time when he retired, and we all moved to Puerto Rico. And with that,
Something.
he stayed in New York. But long story short, I never asked him about spirituality until he was on his deathbed. And that was the first time I asked him about, Papi, how do I get in touch with my spirit? Like the spirit. He told me two things. One, read. I dropped out of school at the age of 16 for various reasons, and I didn't necessarily read. This is 10 years later. I was 26, on at the hospital at his deathbed. And long story short, the question was, how do I get in touch with spirit? He told me to read. The second thing he told me before I left the hospital room was, um, he was gonna send me the power.
Nice.
Now, I didn't necessarily understand the depth of that, but obviously, definitely from there, I woke up spiritually. By the time I got back to New York, I woke up spiritually, and that's when my journey began.
How old?
April 17th, 2002.
Nice. And how old were you again? What
That
age?
was 26.
26. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, 26. So that was right before my Saturn return. Our Saturn return is 28 years old. 28, just as there's 28 days in the lunar calendar, those 28 years is a significant shift, is a cycle that we're fulfilling. And generally speaking, that's when we enter what's called the midlife crisis, which is that so-called midpoint. But it's not the midpoint, it's actually the beginning. It's the beginning of you blossoming in consciousness, ideally, and waking up to the journey, to the process, to your purpose, what you came here for. So generally speaking, 2 years before your Saturn return, you can start feeling the rumble, like things are not quite right. You start questioning, and the whole rumble is for you to start questioning reality, questioning why you're here, questioning the purpose. What is the significance of all this? And through that process of questioning, and like I said, that rumble is also what they call the spirit is knocking. And that spirit knocking can be a gentle knock, or it could kick in the door and get your ass the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? Wake the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? So mine was more of a kick in the door, get wake the fuck up. And I went through my hard knocks. Anyway, long story short, all that to say, my father wasn't just my biological father; he was also my spiritual father. So I feel I come from that lineage of whether it's spiritual warriors, shamanistic uh folk, that have always existed without no certification, without the academia to affirm what I've already come to learn and know through the journey. So you talk about the barefoot yogi, that's like 15 years of my journey of walking barefoot. And before I go there, I would say what brought that about was, and this is what I'm telling to the diaspora, to all our people, that we have to go through a process of deprogramming, de-domestication, decolonization, and deconditioning. Let me repeat that:
Motherfucker.
deprogramming, deconditioning, decolonization, and de-domestication. But here we go: cultivating the earth, um, healing the inner child, and bringing forth the inner goddess as a man to find that balance, and the women finding their masculine to find that balance. But and that's nothing to do with the LGBT, none of that. It's about it's spiritual principles. It's energy. It's energy. So I'm just gonna repeat that one more time, three times the charm, because it's so important. We have to deprogram, decondition, de-domesticate, and decolonize. And that's just the beginning, because we got a whole lifetime of this conditioning and programming. And I'll tell you, I'm so grateful. I was born in 75. I turned 50 years old this year. So I have 25 years in the 1900s, and then another 25, 26 years be in the 21st century, as they call it. So I'm coming from the 20th century to the 21st century. My father was born in 1929. My point is, and my great grandmother, who I met, was born in 1875. Exactly. And I met her because I was born in 1975. She was over 100 years old. I was a child, but I remember her. My point is, she was born 10 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. 1875, the 1865 is the Emancipation Proclamation. That's Abraham Lincoln and all of that. So for me, like, that isn't so long ago. My great grandmother was around. It's not a long time ago. I could get into more historical whatever. I'll just throw this at you, because in the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln put a little comma, and the comma was that the Africans were freed unless you were incarcerated.
Mm.
Exactly. And guess what? So me bearing witness to the heroin and the crack epidemics from the 70s and the 80s, and then in the 90s with gentrification and mass incarceration, basically I was able to bear witness to that in terms of how that comma turned into incarceration and where we are right now. I'm saying that to say, in terms of the conditioning and programming, is deep. Is deep. And the folks that are born in the year 2000 that are 26 years old right now, interesting enough, back to that 26 and going to that Saturn return. Listen, you guys, Generation Z, you guys are going through your Saturn return as the world goes through a Saturn return. It's a 28,000 year cycle from, you know what I'm saying? Like, this planet is going through a massive cycle. It's all about cycles within cycles. My point is, if you're 26 right now and and the shit is kind of hitting the fan, your life is not necessarily making sense. You feel disconnected. You feel confused. That's also part of your own, Saturn return. You just happen to be going through it on a collective global scale as well. And this is just amplifying and magnifying it and making it more intense and more, powerful, transformational, because it's happening to you while it's happening on a global scale, which is unprecedented. So I'm gonna stop right there, and and get back to you, Dr. D. Because you,
That was beautiful. I mean, that was beautiful. I like that because you're giving us something that they can connect with and they can understand. Especially now, who would have thought 100 years that you have that information to you that is awakened and what I would call downloads of your grandparents, but being awakened again and remembering this box that opened in your life that you seen or maybe closed for a little bit, you know what I mean? Then you met with your dad and then all the boxes opened up again. And or what I also again call a portal. That you step through the portal shift that we have in life and roll with it. And then also that you're in your shamanism, step into the feet of your ancestors to walk the land and what I like to call a medicine person to the earth, a gift, a gatekeeper. There's so many different names for what others do and you do. Um, and it's so funny, I was thinking about it today. Your name is Prophet, right? You got Prophet. Do you want to guess what my dad's name was?
what's that?
Prophet.
Okay.
They called him a prophet. my dad see, but my dad taught me my gift as a kid, and I didn't realize that I had a gift. He was the one, you know what I mean, passed it on to me, and I'm the only child. But when I was looking at your name, and I was like, okay, daddy, and I was talking about my dad and his name. He had two names, the green-eyed monster and prophet. So, and then I kept saying, that's why I asked you, what do you want to be called? And what is your name? And you woke something up in my ancestor lineage. And my dad said, I'm going to bring you the people that need to be with you. I'm going to bring you your tribe. And the thing that you're doing, you said humanity's tribe. You're having a gathering for the tribe of humanity. That's
Mm-hmm.
good. And then you're building for the humanity tribe in Colombia. That is even more significant. And the journey that you've taken and not afraid. We've talked years ago of, your book, that and the journey of getting from Brooklyn and getting to Columbia and coming back. And I remember your van. We were talking about your van of how to get it there, and you were like, whatever should be, should be. If I get it, I'll be able to drive it. I'm gonna make it work. Just rolling with the punches, no matter what was coming at you. That in itself takes a lot of courage. So I've been, like I've been watching, and you just happen to pop up. Since I've been back in the U.S., I have not been in the U.S. that long, making my journey. So I was like, okay. So I talked to my ancestors daily, and the fact that you're talking about Santeria, that's another thing. I know some people in Santeria and Babalaos and stuff like that. I'm not part of that. I'm a spiritual person. I don't have to go, or I don't feel I need to do ceremony. If you get my drift, to be part of. I know stuff that I can do naturally, and that's how I have a calling. But that's not my path. If you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, my biological mother is a high priestess in the hand of Ifa, the hand of 21 divisions, and Yoruba, and all of that stuff. So, um, I wasn't born into this. My mother came into this late in life. I would like to say when I was grown. So, the fact that, how that's really encouraging, and that I'm finding someone that understands about that as well. And everybody thinks that religion is, a lot of people think it's bad. There's good and bad against everything, even the Bible. That's all I'm going to say out there. As someone said, straight devil, straight devil. I was like, no, not everything is of the devil. And even the Bible can be used for destruction. Anything can be used for the destruction. Even ourselves against each other can be used for destruction. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there, trying to.
Well, I it's true because, like for instance, these folk love to they weaponize everything. Whether it's the Bible. I was telling, do you have a problem with water? Probably not. Do you have a problem with food? Probably not. Do you have a problem with air? Probably not. But guess what? These guys are putting chemtrails in the air, fluoride in the water, GMO food, toxins in the food. Even music is weaponized. My God,
Exactly.
listen, these guys even weaponized music, and on top of that, they took love out of music. I grew up in a town, Motown, 60s, 70s, 80s. Love permeated the music. Actually, the
Yes.
music was actually tantric. There was a lot of tantric jewels in there. If you had the understanding and awareness, the music was deep, powerful, beautiful. But once again, love was extracted out of music and weaponized against us. Not only do they have drill music, kill music, they got crack music.
Huh? I never
They
heard
got
of that
crack
one.
music.
What's crack music? I've never
Crack
heard that.
music is, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, like Benny the Butcher, West Side Guns, like Griselda. I'll send you a link later. But the point is like crack music is music that you listen to and it makes you want to sell crack. It is like it makes you want to get back into that life of just of darkness. It makes it it makes it sweet. It makes it something that's attractive. And you know what? I'm an adult. But I feel for the young bloods, you know what I'm saying, the youth that are glamorizing this. Hey, let's put that to the side. Let's talk about the women, Cardi B, and all the other, portrayals of women now, and how women listen. There's so much, in terms of the gender war that's going on, and women having an issue with men. I'm just gonna say a couple things. One, the music alone could tell you so much how the love was, how men treated women and honored women, respected women, and loved their women. And this is going back from the time immemorial till recent. This recent phenomena of bitches and hoes and all this other stuff and niggas and all this stuff. This is a recent phenomenon, and that comes from actually the extension of COINTELPRO, which eventually evolved into the hip hop police. And is backed up by the whole mass incarceration prison industrial complex, and is basically set and bent to destroy it and undermine us as a people. But my point is, and another thing I want to mention about the men and women and the gender war is that, you know what? Did you know that Harriet Tubman was at the end of the Civil War, going back to my great grandmother at 1875? Harriet Tubman turned into a general.
Right.
Did you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then you ever heard of Nana from the Maroons? Okay, like there was a Mama Nana, I believe her name was. She was a Maroon in Jamaica. So she
Mm-hmm.
was, once again, she was a general in the Maroons, within the Maroon clans, and she was leading them into battle. What my point is, whether you're talking about Nana and the Maroons, or you're talking about Harriet Tubman, or you're talking about, we had many women that were generals, queens, respected as goddesses and warriors. So all of this craziness that we were, I don't know, like right now in terms of the situation between the genders, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And you know what? I'm just trying to remind folks that, what, we've always honored our women. We didn't hold them back. You know, anyway, I could go into that. That's another whole conversation. That's another whole conversation. But my point is, yes, everything has been weaponized, even gender, even the sexes.
Yep.
Literally everything. There's nothing that these people do not weaponize. Even AI, with all its beautiful possibilities, they want to use that against us. It's going to be used to surveil and undermine us. So this is the nature of the beast. Like some of us wake up thinking of in terms of gratitude and blessings and what we want to bring into the world, and these folks just wake up, thinking of how to destroy, kill, maim.
Right.
You know,
Well, you got to understand their nature because that's all they know. Destruction. If that's all you know, and that's all you've been programmed to be or to do, then that's what you're going to keep doing. But if you know of love, real understanding, real unconditional love, and when it comes from the heart, then you're not going to do that. And we do have some people that don't buy into I want to say the the destruction. I'm trying to be like very positive. The destruction that is out there, but what the world needs, like you said, is love, right? So if you get people together and keep putting that virtue, all it takes is one person and another person, and each person latching on and understanding who they are and how powerful they are. But they gotta believe in the love within themselves that is going to touch another person. Remember, they used to say, "It's nothing like a mother's prayer to get their child done," where mothers would come together and pray for this child, that child, this child. Mothers used to pray over their children each and every day as they walked out the door in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. You know what I mean? There were grandmothers in the house. And it was nothing, sure, my great grandmother worked at the school that I went to. And I mean, great grandmother went to the school, and if you didn't do what, not only were you going to get in trouble, but she's out there at the lunchtime to know. So we don't have that balance anymore because a lot of us don't, we're not coming together even as a woman tribe or a man tribe because that was a dissociation. How does a young man grow up to know what a young man is supposed to be? because all he's seeing what he sees on TV, or he's being told in the street, man, if you ain't out here doing this, you a punk. And this is the street. This is what they've been told. There was another a young man. Um, it was a young man when Supernova, Supernova Salon, that had a gathering, and I was so proud of that when he was younger, and he got the real Panthers together, the Bloods and the Crips in one place to make them understand the way they say the Bloods and Crips were. That's not how it started. It was coming together and understanding it is of love. The Bloods and Crips, they were not fighting against each other. They were not killing each other. Just like the Black Panthers, and we have a Black Panther Party come in. This is years ago. I mean, like maybe 15, 20 years
I
ago.
remember that.
And it's right there in Brooklyn on Dean
Mhm.
Street, where Queen had a facility. I was one of the booths. That means teacher there. So, my kids grew up in that kind of understanding of knowing, of being positive. Also grew up being vegan, which is not something that was prevalent back then. So they grew up very different. I won't just put it out there, but it was an understanding that it was okay. This is what it is. Now, something my son said to me about 7 years ago, which frightened me and put fear in me, and because I'm gonna say this, because I am a child of God and I am God, not saying that I'm a male, I shouldn't have no fear. My son said to me, Mom, I can't walk around and be myself here because that could cost me my life. If I stand up fully with my head up, I could get blown, shot, or killed just for the color of my skin and my size. I'm intimidating. I would rather be short. Do you know how frightening that is as a mother to have someone has your child say that? How do you protect a child like that? How do you make him understand that don't walk in fear? And I say I don't, and he said, Mom, but that's you. You a woman, but I'm a woman of color. That's what I told him. I said I just not gonna take no stuff from people, and I do fight for my babies. And he knows I got, like, when it comes to my kids, I am a fierce lioness and always have been. So he wouldn't say stuff because he was afraid of the repercussions of coming back on me. So he shrunk himself. And that's why I said, how do you talk to young men like that? How do you get them to come out of, that fear? And I was told I can't, it's nothing I can do.
Well, it's interesting because when, as you were talking and you mentioned, raising your children in that way, what popped in my mind was, yeah, you created that container, but as soon as they leave the house, they're dealing with a whole reality, and that's the whole thing about us as a people, those of us of like mind and spirit that have that, conscious awareness and whatnot, we're all isolated. Yeah, everybody has their own little room, their own little apartment, their own little home. Oh, and we're spread out. It's a diaspora
Okay.
of consciousness. And the idea and the reality is going to listen. I'm about solutions. And the solution to me, the understanding to me was always land. The first one was the first vision I received was of the people's sanctuary. And my point is bringing that, tying that to your son. The idea of the community, the tribe, the village. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and there's a truth behind that. If you think about it, back in the days, even the kid running around doing his thing, neighbors could say something. I was talking to somebody a little earlier about this. The neighbors had the right to say, you know what, I'm going to tell your mother, or I'm going to tell your father,
Yeah.
or straight up,
Give you a
however
spanking.
that may be. It wasn't just, it was like there was a level of respect and a sense of community. and that has been destroyed, shredded, shattered. I would say from the crack epidemic, and then we're talking about not only the crack epidemic, but and then we're talking about the children that were born out of that,
right,
and then on top of that, those children now becoming mothers and fathers because they're millennials now. They're
right,
millennials. They're in their 30s. You know what I'm saying? They're already adults. And whatever that effect had upon them. It's just, yeah, the whole situation is so bad. So in terms of the children, is it really about? It comes down to community, and
right.
and I was talking to this sister the other day, and she mentioned there's some folks that have some land over there in North Carolina and whatnot. And I'm like, listen, the truth of the matter is, even if you have an apartment that's designated to a new way, a new earth, and a new way of life, whether you have that or you have 3,000 acres, we have to have something. But my point is, too, is that in this country, if you look back at history, like let's go back to the 1920s. Like I said, my father was born in 1929. This is the roaring 20s. This is the time of the Black Renaissance, Harlem Renaissance, Black Wall Street, you know, um, and we had Rosewood. We had so many communities like that throughout the United States. All of them were destroyed, buried underwater, dams, or burnt. Okay, so all of those communities from back then were burnt and destroyed. And then if you go all the way to the 60s, we had what move over there in Philadelphia.
Okay, yep.
They were burnt down. So what I'm saying is this is the pattern and history that keeps on repeating itself. So the important thing to me is, get out of Babylon. You know what I'm saying? Like we need something outside of Babylon. People are too attached to this, and I'm definitely not, and spirit has guided me once again to Colombia, to another place. And it's not even like I went over there on some I want to get land and I want to establish, you know, this over there. No, I went on a talk about that barefoot yogi in terms of my journey. That was a reality. And walking as a barefoot yogi with your mochila, my backpack, I didn't have any destination. I didn't know where I was going. And let alone, I didn't have the money and the funds to acquire anything, but I didn't even know where I was going. So it was like irrelevant. Wherever I was, that was home. Whether in the forest or whether in the train or in the park or under a bridge or in a room or in a home, whatever it was because I had to go through my own healing process and kind of like taking myself through a rites of passage. Now, going back to your son, because this is what's missing for the young warriors. There's no rites of passage.
Right,
So that's right. If you want to go somewhere, that's exactly where you need to go. He needs a rites of passage, and not just him. We're talking about even the adults. Even the adult men needs a rite of passage because they didn't get it. You know what? Getting locked up has become the rites of passage. In terms of being incarcerated, that's the rites of passage because cats get locked up, they go up north, and then what's up? They swell up, they become a man. You know what I'm saying? Supposedly, they become a man because they were up north. So the rites of passage has become incarceration, and the initiation has become joining a gang.
right.
Yeah, that's what it is. And this is part of the programming and too. And this, so what in terms of your son, rites of passage, I would definitely say martial arts as well as a discipline, as a practice that's practical, in terms of him being able to defend himself. And also because what's the cool thing about martial arts, and when you really have that sense of that you could protect yourself under situations, what happens is now your inner child can be free because your inner child now you could be in your inner child because you can handle it. But if you can't, if you feel a fear that you can't protect yourself, your inner child has to hide, and then other parts of you have to come to protect. Listen, growing up in New York, Brooklyn, New York, this reality, you grow up with armor. You have to have an armor, protective armor, you know what I'm saying, on a spiritual level, energetic level. You got PTSD. You're all, we grow up with so much trauma in this society and reality, and we normalize it. This is all PTSD, man. And also post-traumatic stress disorder. We got, and I could go on about that. coming from the East Coast, those of you that are from the East Coast, I'm gonna tell you right now, you guys are in a holding pattern. Let me give you a heads up. You're in a holding pattern. This is why you go from New York to maybe Florida or Atlanta, and maybe you go to the Caribbean for 2 weeks vacation, and then you come back. That's your holding pattern. I'm gonna tell you right now, most people on the East Coast have never passed the Mississippi. Most people on the East Coast have never passed the Mississippi River. That's part of the holding pattern. You're stuck on the East Coast, and you're stuck in your job, which is that, which is basically the anchor that keeps you back. Like I said, you get your 2 week vacation, maybe an extra week that you split up for sick days or whatever. But my point is, this is the holding pattern. This is what keeps you locked in, you know. And I'm gonna tell you, there's another side to that because there's people on the West Coast that never pass the Mississippi neither. They don't dare, and I'll tell you why.
Wow.
They don't
Okay.
they don't dare pass the Mississippi because as far as they're concerned, the East Coast is like animals, savages. So they
Okay.
don't they're fearful of passing the Mississippi. But the people on the East Coast don't pass the Mississippi not because of fear. They're not even aware. And let me give you a heads up. New York is the first three chakras. The first chakra, survival. In terms of dealing with survival, the basics of survival, food, shelter, you know, family, is basically dealing with just the fundamentals of survival. The second chakra is currency, business, currency, the currents, business, relations. Third chakra, power, ego, and asserting yourself in the world. Your power, your ego, and asserting yourself into the world. That's your third chakra, your solar plex. Guess what? You're stuck right there. You don't go into the heart.
Mm.
You really don't go into the heart. Like New York is not a place where find your heart and find your sensitivity and become vulnerable and open. No, because if you're fucking vulnerable and open, you're gonna get smashed. You're gonna get fucked up. You know what I'm saying? Your kindness is gonna be taken for a weakness. You know what I'm saying? Your generosity is gonna be exploited. You know what I'm saying? So how you're not going to be able to go in no heart. If anything, your heart has to close for you to survive and to maintain. And I'm not just talking about the the interactions with other humans. I'm talking about even on an energetic level, the density of this reality is too much. You have to close up. It's like a flower blossoming. When you get into this reality, it has to close. So I'll give you a heads up though. If you pass the Mississippi, you see, California is known as the gold state. They found a lot of gold over there. But what's interesting is gold is also connected to the frequency of love. They say gold is the physical manifestation of love. So what I'm saying is that going to the West Coast, they always got that saying that Cali love.
I've never heard that.
There's something to that. When you go to California, you definitely tap into your heart. If you're in the United States, you tap into your heart. And when you tap into your heart, that's when your journey begins. That's when you're allowed, it allows you actually to see, because when you go to California, it's also like a jump off point. The same way that Florida is a jump off to the Caribbean. California is a jump off to Asia. You know, the East Coast is more connected to the European, if anything, over there. You know what I'm saying? That whole, you know, and all I'm saying is that traveling is important. There's activations that take place when you travel. Is a spiritual thing, man. Like there's a difference between a tourist and a traveler. I'm a traveler. You know what I'm saying? The tourist is going wherever they go and they're still in Starbucks. They're looking for the McDonald's. In Gambia, they'll be in Uganda looking for McDonald's. I'm serious. It's sad, but that's the truth. They stay in resorts. A tourist likes to stay in the resort. They'll go to Jamaica, but they'll stay in that resort.
Oh, wow.
A traveler, listen, when I went to freaking Haiti, I'm a traveler. I'm on the bus. I'm on the tuk-tuk. I'm riding with the people, I'm like, I'm in the hood. I'm in Port-au-Prince. I'm outside. You know what I'm saying? It's like I move with the people. That's the difference of a traveler and a tourist. The tourist avoids the people because they stay in this comfortable bubble. that reminds them and that connects them to this reality. It makes them feel comfortable. This is part of the programming. And let me just give you a heads up too, because the deprogramming, deconditioning, decolonization, and then there's the de-domestication. You see, when you're in this reality over here in the north, in your creature comforts and your air and your air conditioned space, and you're in this domesticated bubble. It's the difference between a coyote and a wolf and a domesticated dog. A domesticated dog wants its little bowl of food and wants to get petted on the head. A coyote or a wolf does not care about your bowl of food and does not care about your freaking validation getting patted on the head. You know what I'm saying? The wolf and the coyote runs wild and is free and loves it and will not exchange it, won't exchange it for that bowl of food or a pat on the head or a fucking collar on my neck. Excuse my language. Uh, so my point is, de-domestication is a part of it. One of the things that helped me with my de-domestication was me doing a vision quest. I did a vision quest, 4 days on the mountain, no food, no water, dealing with the elements and just dealing with reality, dealing with nature, dealing with reality. That was a such a blessing because that served me in many ways in terms of being, once again, being comfortable in nature. Look, me growing up as a child, being taken to Puerto Rico every year, prepared me and exposed me to the elements so that, what, as an adult, me moving to Colombia right now is no big deal. It's like, because I'm used to it already. It's within me. So if you want to help the children out, you got to expose them to these things at an early age. Nature, basically expose them to actual nature, because guess what? We're living in this society now, in terms of it becoming digital, the reliance on cell phones, the reliance on AI, the reliance on this technology, the reliance on screens for learning. We're talking about, if you were born in the year 2000, you're 26 years old, all you know is a screen. And if you've never been out of this frequency, you're not gonna, you're gonna have issues. You're gonna be stuck, and this goes back to that holding pattern.
Well, I
Hmm.
want to say, whether you know it or not, you actually went through what they call in Hopi tribe or Deer tribe. Deer tribe in Arizona. Deer tribe, medicine deer tribe, with the 29 grandmothers. I was part of that tribe there, where the men would take the young men and they would go on do sun dancing. So what you did is taking a young man, you went on a journey by yourself, but then it's also known in the native or indigenous, what you did on your own is usually the men, the chief, get together and get boys and take them into the wilderness for them to survive. These are things we're not doing anymore. That is something that needs to be done, um, with some of these men for them to young men as they're early for them to grow up. It used to be the boys,
Boy Scouts.
but that's we'll leave that where it is because it's a lot of things that's going on. It's not because I was part of the boys club for my son, but I'm not a man. You know what I mean? But I was there because there were not enough men volunteering to go. And would you trust your child to go the way things are back then? And for me, no. I'd rather I cut you too short to, you know what, you touch my child. So I'm one of those very tough no. Um, but that's what I liked about I saw our set because we did movies, like he grew up with movies and how to fight with the stick in the comedic community there, you know what I mean. He was not the only vegan person, but again, that African chapter there in Brooklyn is there. When he comes, like we said, into the real world, like when he go to school, he's not going to school with those people that he sees when he's out there going and doing those studies and stuff like that. So it's different when I know on Saturdays I'm going in here and I'm going to sweat with my mom. We're doing sweat lodges. We're going to do the fasting and all of this stuff, and all these people and they're vegan, and we're watching these conscious, conscious movies. We're with them, but once I leave this from Monday until Thursday, I'm at school. You know what I mean? I'm with a whole different mindset. And there needs to be a place where these young men actually can go. Going back to you and you having your gathering, humanity gathering. Is this what that is about on October 25th that you got going on 2026?
Well, you know what? So that's definitely what I'm about. First of all, the thing is that you mentioned October 25th. That was an old flyer that I recycled. So that the actual gathering took place the 21st and the 22nd. This weekend that just passed. It was
Okay.
beautiful and phenomenal. Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now. For me personally, it's all about bringing our people together. That's it. Because once we come together, that unification, and on a real level, on a practical level, vibrational level, through music, through dance, through song, through food, breaking bread, through ceremony, through celebration, through our art, through our craft. Once we do that, it's just a natural progression, because it's something that I feel like we're so starved of, like it's just ridiculous, because I'm looking at, like I said, I got a half a century in this piece already. So I went from when we were a tribe, when we had family, we had clans, we had tribe, we had, you know what I'm saying? Like it was, and I saw from that coming to where we are right now, where it's just like, the family is broken down. Unfortunately, it's just sad, and I'm just looking at it deteriorating and just getting worse. It's not getting better anytime soon. So, you know, all that to say, back to the land, back to the work. So well, before I even continue, can you repeat that question if I didn't answer it for you?
I was asking about the gathering, but you just said that that is already passed. When you go to the sanctuary in Colombia, is there going to be a piece where young men can go on a journey, like you went on a journey with other brothers that's going to teach them to go in the woods and get to know themselves?
Absolutely.
And same thing for the women, is there going to be a place for them? Because the women need that too. Like I was saying, the women gather. We have lost a lot, meaning that the women used to gather. Like I was talking with my girlfriend, and when women gave birth, it was not like it is today. You go in the hospital, give birth, you come out. When a woman gave birth, they prepared the home, spiritually cleansing, moving, all that stuff, getting rid of the old stuff. And then when they came home, there was your grandmother, there was your auntie, there was your great aunt. It was a women getting together, gathering, and helping you when you bring that child home, so that there was nothing. And there was meals prepared where the mother was nurtured, because this is a special time. And the father was there too, but they were cared for. You know what I'm saying? As a family, that we have lost of this connection. When is there going to be a place like that for midwifery and motherhood, getting together the women to help these people um, be able to achieve that on this property, besides teaching and learning? Is there going to be a place that is going to gather the women as well as the men as they go through transition?
Absolutely. These are essential. The intention behind this land and the project Celestial Seed is definitely about the family. It's definitely about the 7 generations to come, and it's definitely about healing, holistic justice, which is a, which is, and look, I had a master teacher one time tell me, she told me, self mastery is reparations. And to me that always stuck with me, because self mastery is reparations. You know what? Even if they cut the check, at the end of the day, if we don't have the mind, body, and soul connection, if we don't have that communal community, camaraderie, connection, then we're just gonna give them right the money right back to them. So and so so it's like in terms of the land, the family, the women, the children, the elders. Listen, once again, women, the children, the men, the elders. It's like I'm in terms of the land, I'm definitely taking into consideration the elders, the women and children in terms of their comfort, in terms of how can I make this place more comfortable for them, keeping them in mind. The warriors, the men, we're good, but I want to make sure that the women, the children, and the elders are is accessible to them, and they're comfortable. So definitely. So with that being said, it's about life and all its facets. So in terms of the women, yes, there'll be the red tent for the women. Actually, right now we have the casita, which is has turned into the house of the moon, which is and also the central communal kitchen. Is where the whole community comes to break bread. And then I have what's called the house of the rising sun, which is once again it's going back to the men and the women, the masculine and feminine, finding that balance in ourselves and in our nature. um Long story short, yes, in terms of the women and in terms of the children, I wanted to say this about the women and the young ladies, because what you said is 100% correct in terms of giving birth, and I'll take a step further for you. The step further is when that young lady has her first moon cycle, menstrual cycle. In the same way that that midwife, that mother was, surrounded by the aunties, grandma, and the other women of wisdom, is the same way that that young lady should be surrounded by those women of wisdom, and giving guidance and understanding, and let her know that what she's going through is very narrow. That in the women's way, let her know that what she's going through is natural, and it's part of her process. And what I would like to see is, the women teach that young lady something, like, and give her a whole year. So I don't know whatever it may be, whether it's cooking, knitting, or shooting a bow and arrow. I don't know. I don't. It's up for the women to decide what that young lady needs in terms of being a woman and being balanced. But my point is, they should kind of like mentor her for a year, and then after a year there should be some type of ceremony where she gets to present what she's learned. So I would say that's the way for the women to do their thing. In terms of the boys, the to men, going back to the rites of passage, definitely the idea and reality of being able to survive in nature, being able to sustain yourself. And like I said, another level to that on a deeper level, long term, would be the martial arts as a discipline. But the other side of the martial arts is the healing aspects, where there's the yoga, where there's the meditation, and and to become a true Renaissance man, understanding the herbs, the plants, the medicine. So, and to take that a step further, music and art. This is, I'm gonna tell you right now, all of these elements that I'm talking about is what you call a Renaissance man, but over there in Latin America and Colombia, that's normal. That's normal. You ain't getting no freaking star for that, bro. That's normal over there. You know what I'm saying? And this is what we're lacking over here.
Right.
Over here, we're lacking it over here, but over there is a way of life. And there's certain things that are embedded within the society over there that I find to be, oh wow, this is very powerful. And this is why, and I'll say this too. You see, like Americans, they swear they know everything, and we swear we're so smart. But going back to the idea of the domesticated dog and the coyote, like the Americans are like the domesticated animal. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, over there, folks, those folks are like so close to the earth. They're like the wolves and the coyotes, but not in a bad way, in a good way, in terms of their connection to the earth and to the elements and to reality, because that's reality. Being in this domesticated thing and called Babylon, this is a reality, but it's just a reality that has been superimposed upon the true reality, which is nature and the natural rhythms and cycles of nature, seasons, lunar cycles, and so forth. That's reality. So, you know it's yeah, it's ridiculous. So back to the land. Yes, we will have things for the women, we would have things for the young men and the warriors, the men. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Before there's going to be stuff for the public, but what I would like to see personally is the teachers, healers, masters, elders, shamans, yogis, the whole holistic, the musicians, the artisans, the activists. I would like for us to come together and in circle, share our medicine, share our knowledge, wisdom, sit around the fire, sing our songs, dance, break bread. Like I want us to come together and connect one time. And as we connect and we build those relations, then we'll open it up to the public,
Right.
and we'll have a stronger container. And I'll say this to that too, because if we don't have that strong container, what happens is we get this is why we're so separated and segregated and just kind of like fragmented. It's ridiculous. We're so fragmented because there's no strong relations. And that's what it's all about, at the end of the day. I'm gonna stop right there and listen to
Well,
what you gotta say, doctor.
what I want you to do on the private chat, I want you to type in the private chat like where they can get in touch with you, so I can put it across the screen and a banner, so people can see, get in touch with you if they want to donate. So in Colombia, um, when are you going back to Colombia? Or, do you know? Or you doing a tour here? I know you're here on the East Coast for a minute, um, but I know that you go down there, and I remember that you had a grandmother that was talking to you, and a medicine lady, I forget her name, or midwife she um, was there helping you.
Um, Listen, I'll be honest. I wanna go home. I like leaving. I want to be there as soon as March. And when I say I want to go home, I'm gonna tell you right now, the feeling of getting to Colombia is like sliding into home base. You know, the feeling. I'm gonna tell you right now. Since 2011, when I first started my journey, coming into America was like coming into a burning building.
Mm,
That's the way it felt. Like I'm coming into a burning building. You know what I'm saying? It's not. I'm not here to run around and it's not. I'm here on a mission and and I have a purpose, and that sense of urgency. Like I could smell the smoke from back then. So now at this point, right now, I'm going through the eye of the needle. Right now, this is the nanosecond. I'm going through the eye of the needle. I'm coming in here and I'm coming right out. It's like I don't have, like, that's the way I see it. Like this is not, it's not casual. I'm here now because spirit has me here, but and I'm serving a purpose. But at the end of the day, I definitely want to go home. I want to go back to the land. you know, I've been a rolling stone for decades. Yeah, I left my house when I was 16 years old. I'm 50. I went through mad years, decades in darkness, in street life and all that madness. And then in 2002 I woke up and I've been on my own spiritual journey since then. So I've been on the road for a long time. So to finally have a home, a place to call home, you know i'm I, I just want to pour my heart and soul into that. Another thing too is like it's called celestial seed. Our heart is like a seed, and that seed needs to be grounded, it needs to be planted, it needs to be rooted, it needs to take root. So when your heart takes root on that land, in that place, that's when you could spread those branches and limbs, and then that's when you could start bringing the flowers and fruits of your practice and your heart and soul to humanity and to reality. And I've never experienced that because I've been on the road and like a rolling stone. But so for me, I want to get home. I definitely want to, you know, put that foundation down and be there to welcome the people as they come, as they're ready. So just for the record, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my what you call it, my number that they can reach me on WhatsApp or Signal. This is my Colombian number, so it looks weird. But
you don't use that WhatsApp?
I do use WhatsApp and Signal. And I'm gonna give you a heads up. WhatsApp is good because everybody's on it,
Yep,
but
Mexico, and we use it in Guam too.
but here's but here's the deal. WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. You
Ah,
know, yeah. So whatever you wouldn't share on Facebook, you wouldn't necessarily want to share it on WhatsApp. It's also owned by because it's Meta. It also owns Instagram. So Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp are just three pieces of the same thing. If you want to go to the next level and be on a secured, encrypted line, then I would highly suggest and recommend Signal app, which does everything that WhatsApp does, but it's encrypted.
okay, okay, that makes sense.
I'll put my email. That's a good way to get me.
Yeah, that too.
And of course, my Facebook and things of that nature and Instagram. But if you really want to get me, send me a message on WhatsApp if that's what you do on that phone, or send me a signal, and we could say something in the put something in the subject to get my attention. I'll put it right here. Subject, celestial seed. So okay, so we've been talking for an hour. Um, is there something specifically you would like to discuss, or you want me to talk a little bit more about Colombia?
I really want you to talk about Colombia because a lot of people are scared of Colombia right
Oh,
now,
let me tell you right now,
which is BS, but that's
it's
fine.
absolute, absolute. I'm gonna tell you right now, the places that they trying to keep you away from is for a reason. Colombia is the University of the Medicines. I'm gonna look in the camera. Look in my eyes right now. Colombia is the University of the Medicines. It's a place of wisdom, knowledge, unprecedented. The East, like India, Tibet, Nepal, these places have been known for their wisdom because it was written down. But Colombia is all about the oral tradition. It's only spoken. So what happens is, it's not written. So people don't know that that wisdom is alive. Is alive like a live, living transmission. That's from lineages. So guess what? You know what? My elder over there has his elder that's alive, and his elder has his elder, and his elder has his elder. It's like lineages of elders of wisdom, of knowledge and understanding, overstanding, understanding. um the Colombia and South America is represented by the condor. The North United States is the eagle. The eagle is about technology, is about the intellect and the vision. But the condor is about the heart because it has the biggest wingspan. So going to Colombia is all about heart. It's all love, all heart, and that also is connected to the family. And with that, the roots and the culture of planting the seed and that connection to the earth, to the elements. Listen, over here in New York, you got Central Park, you got Prospect Park. These are places where everything is landscaped and everything, even the waters are not running their natural due course. They've been manipulated. Everything's been manipulated. So when you go to places like Colombia, we're talking about these are places that still have the Amazon, the Andes Mountains. My point is the nature is pristine, is it's still alive. The mystery and the magic, the myth, that brought about the origins of in terms of the origin stories, is alive over there. It's not superficial and it's not empty. It's alive. In terms of the exchange rate, that within itself, for $2.50, $3, I get a 6 course meal. I eat good. I live good, connected to the earth. I plant the seed. I'm so honored to be over there as a guardian and steward of this land, and to create this space and place to receive the people. Um, while I'm over there, I'm in a constant state of ceremony. Like over here, yeah, you might go to the sweat lodge and go to ceremony, or you might have this experience. Everything over here in the west, in the north, is so compartmentalized. Is everything is in a compartment. You got your little church time or your little this time. Your work time, and then you're off of work. It's just like everything is in a compartment. Over there, it's like you're diving into the ceremony. You're swimming in the ceremony and that vibration of the earth, of the ceremony, of the sacred, of the medicine, of the wisdom, of that transmission, of the dharma, however you want to call it. It's once again, it's alive, and it's something that when I come into the north, when I come to the United States, it's like listen. I already feel the density. When you're going through customs, you feel the density. I have to slip into a New York state of mind when I come up here. I have to put on my New York state of mind, put the armor on as I energetically come into this dense field. But when I'm over there, guess what? I can let go. You said your son, he feels like he can't be his true self over here. That's part of the density. That's part of that's the density that's holding him down and that's keeping him from being his true self. What I'm saying is just being in an environment like what we've established over there in Celestial Seed is a place where you're automatically, it's just a matter of time of you being there, you're gonna blossom as a natural default. It's gonna be like your default setting is to blossom over there. Whereas over here, your default setting is to armor up, and to have protections. You got, then to not get caught slipping. So you're always on guard. You know what I'm saying? So when do you get to relax? So my point is, on a deeper level, your whole nervous system is jacked up over here because your nervous system is constantly on guard and alert. Because you can't trust nobody, you can't trust the situation, and it's just all everything is just what it is, and it's been normalized. So what I'm saying is an environment like we created and we're creating and cultivating. I call it, for me, is like an incubator for new earth. We're like babies, in terms of us being able to blossom into who we are. Like your son, he's already said he can't even feel like he can express himself fully. He can't be himself fully. Guess what? So what happens is, I don't know how old he is now, but he's gonna go into his teens, into his 20s. He'll be in his 30s, and he'll still be, with all these defense mechanisms and coping skills to deal with reality. And then, you know what, maybe if he's lucky in his 30s, he starts to actually shed that and wake up from that, going back to that Saturn return. So now he's in his 40s and his 50s, and he's still releasing and healing from his childhood wounds. 40s and 50s, and you're still dealing with your childhood wounds, childhood stuff. So guess what, maybe when you're 60 and 70, 80 and 90, come on, really,
So
really,
I got a question for you.
talk to me.
How easy is it to get a visa to go to um, Colombia? Like, are there certain requirements that you have to do in order? Like, I know when you go to Thailand, like me and my son, when he said that we traveled the world because I didn't want him in this BS, um, which is good. But we only could stay 90 days in Thailand, and then we went to Korea. We did like what they call visa runs. So I don't know if you know what a visa run is. Your visa run out, so you go to another country and then come back. So how is that in Colombia? Like, what is the time limit that you can stay there? Are you aware of that or no?
Yes. So, off the top, it is 90 days, but you could get another 90-day extension. So that's 6 months. With that being said, in terms of your visa, it's like the process is, as the flight is landing over there, they're giving you papers so that you could, a little piece of paper with, quick questions that you respond to. That's it. That's your visa. It's not complicated. There's no big process. You don't have to go nowhere. You just got to get on that flight, take that flight, get your butt over there, and you're gonna automatically get your visa, just by coming in as an American, so to speak. Like you said, visa runs is a reality. After 3 months to 6 months, you're gonna have to do that run, until you're ready to really plant yourself down. And if that's the case, then now we could talk about other kinds of visas where there is a process, which is, in terms of personally, what I would like to do is get what's called a business visa. In terms of the land project and the work that I'm doing, um, it's totally in alignment with a business visa in my case. Some other folks could get an investor's visa, but or if you were to fall in love and actually find a mate, there's a marriage. But another visa that I would suggest to our people is a digital nomad visa. Digital nomad visa, which is one of the best visas you could get, not only in Colombia but around the world. Anywhere in the world you could get in with a nomad visa. In Colombia, you would have to earn $1,000 a month will will qualify you for a nomad visa. Different countries have different requirements in terms of how much money you need to earn, but at the end of the day, I would suggest folks to, you know, look into all of the above. A digital nomad visa would be your best bet. If you really want to invest in Colombia and make it home, well, first of all, go visit, experience it, see it, smell it, touch it, become step into that vibration and frequency and see if this is where you truly feel like you want to be. And if that's the case, then yes, there's steps and measures. The final visa would be well, beyond the visa is becoming a resident.
Okay.
So the first visa is 3 to 6 months. The class M visa is like 2 to 3 years. And then you know to becoming a resident is a 5-year process.
Okay.
So as you're working through all these visas that I mentioned, whether the nomad, whether the business, whether the tourist visa, eventually after 5 years, you'll be now stepping into the realm of you're becoming a resident, and through that getting your eventually your Colombian passport. I would highly suggest, listen, folks, forget about just having your American passport, even though that's step one. You have to ideally, I would personally want multiple passports. The more passports the better, because I'm gonna tell you right now, there's gonna be a point when even like your American passport is not gonna be valued, it's not gonna be wanted. The folks don't even want Americans like that, I'll be honest with you. Like Americans got to understand, like you right now, you like Americans on the floor. America swears that it's so great, make America great again, but at the end of the day, it's reputation. And the cool thing about the world, I'll give people a heads up, the world loves us, they respect us, and they'll appreciate and accept us and as individuals. But as Americans as a whole, and what America's doing around the planet, is not a good look. And I would, yeah, get get your house in order is what I would say off the top. Get your house in order, and the first step to that, get your passport.
Well, the thing is, I would like for you to talk about the food because I know what my experience is, um, not living outside the states and going to different countries with the food, especially from Colombia, getting the maca, getting what was else she brought me maca, and it's the yellow maca and the black maca. I didn't even know that was there. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the plants we use or that we call superfoods are actually there in Colombia. And the fruits that you see are amazing. You know what I mean? I have a good friend. Her name is Monica. She is from Colombia. She has a holistic business out there where she does readings and spiritual other stuff out there. And she does something. She goes to the Andes, so she takes people through the shamanic um, healing and the Muna Aiki ceremony. So, and I think she does the plant medicine. That's not a big. That's not my thing. I'm gonna leave it at that. So, um, there might be some people like, do you have exposure to that? That are people that are into plant medicine, like the, what is it, the shrooms and the, I hope I'm saying it right, mushrooms or um, ayahuasca. But I know in the, I'm trying to think of it, and I want to be right. The rainforest shaman is not ayahuasca; it's another plant, and I don't know the correct name, so I don't want to be disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? I did that ceremony, and I would not mind going through that ceremony again. But it was, he was there, and his name was Anunnaki, and it was good. But I did it in Oakland, California, and we're talking about 20 something years ago. That he came, and it was a all day or all night. It started during the day, but everybody's experience was totally different. Mine was really different, and just, I didn't understand it. And I'm being honest, I didn't understand because I thought I was supposed to be high and fly and all of that. But that wasn't my experience. My experience, I just sat there and just watched the other people, and I went and I talked to a jaguar, and I didn't understand, and he said that was significant. You know, I'm not, it was a lot more significant, and gave me the reading. It was a black jaguar, and I was like, I don't know what that has to do with me. And that was that. And he said, we'll meet again. And I'm like, and that's 20 years. I haven't met the gentleman again. I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I had a great experience with that. The ayahuasca and what they go through, it's from what I'm hearing, it's totally different. So I don't discount, but it's not something that I feel I would want to do. Or the mushrooms, because of what I'm hearing, people losing their mind and not coming back. Um, Opening portals, people are guiding people to open portals they know nothing about within themselves, and then they're completely lost. So for me, I would not rather put myself in that situation. For me. But there's others that do not mind going through the mushroom, do not mind going through ayahuasca and any other plant medicine out there. But is it for spiritual or experimentation? Mine was for spiritual awareness. So I'm saying, do you have a connection with that for people that might want to do that?
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. I have a full spectrum of elders, masters, teachers, shamans that I'm a student of at the end of the day, to be honest. To me, going to Colombia, I'm over here talking. When I'm over there in Colombia, I'm just absorbing and learning. I'm a student. I'm a humble student at the end of the day, because the wisdom and the living transmission is so vast, so deep, so profound, that I'm just in a constant state of learning over there.
That's
So in terms of learning about the plants and the variety of whether you're talking about ayahuasca, you're talking about peyote, you're talking about wachuma, you're talking about coca, cacao, tabaco, wilca, bufo. There's so many medicines, and this is why I say it's the university of the medicines. Like, I feel like this country over here, United in the North, is like very elementary on in terms of elementary, in terms of spirituality and the medicines. It's like, once again, there's buildings full of senior citizens, but you don't really see elders walking down the street. You don't really see elders walking down the street, and there's a reason for that. Going back to that domestication, if you never really connected with the earth, planted the seed, seen the sun rise and the sun fall, see a full night of stars, sit around the fire. These are basic fundamentals of being human and your connection to the elements and to the earth. And it's something that we lack over here. You really don't get to sit around the fire. You really don't, in New York City, you're lucky if you see like 4 or 5 stars at night, because the city lights take out the stars. So, um, in terms bringing it back to Colombia, yes, I'm very much connected to a whole gamut of, once again, teachers, masters, healers, of their craft, of their medicine. So for me, what I really am doing over there on one level is creating the university and the school of wisdom and medicine that I would want to experience and that I'm going to experience in terms of living it. And because that's the whole thing. Just to give you a heads up, for instance, I like to break down the year into, if you got the year, you got 4 trimesters, 4 trimesters. So every 3 months is a trimester. And so each month, every trimester is connected to an element, whether it's fire, earth, water, and air. So that'll be a kind of like an emphasis or an intention that's there. Um, but you also have, once again, that lunar cycle, the lunar cycle, that 28-day cycle, and which is 13 months in a year. So that right there is another cycle within a cycle. My point is that, you know, being in alignment with these cycles and the earth and the natural rhythms and the medicine and doing that consciously, having a practice, the idea of what I call the meta diet. The meta diet is, your body has 9 systems, circulatory, respiratory, and lymphatic, endocrine, muscular, digestive. My point is taking each system of the body of those 9 systems and, whether it's fasting, whether it's through plants, whether it's through certain practices to cleanse our bodies in terms of the meta diet, even before we get into the level of the medicines,
Right.
in terms of the ayahuasca, just to give you a heads up, like they say the first night you do ayahuasca is really to clean out the body. The next day you do ayahuasca is now you're cleansing like the mind, and and then the third is not the soul, the spirit. So those 3 days of doing ayahuasca are important. But guess what? A month before that, you're in diet. You're doing a particular diet for a month. So you
Okay.
have a diet for a month, and there's certain plants and herbs that I work with to prepare you for that month, for those 3 days of ceremony. And you could do more than that, of course. But my point is, that's like a bare minimum, base minimum, when you're dealing with ayahuasca. Like if you're smoking weed, you're not supposed to do ayahuasca. It takes 28 days to get that weed out of your system. So that, and that's disconnecting you from the full extent of that medicine. So my point is, yes, we're going to be doing the medicine in a good way, in the proper way, with wisdom and proper guidance from elders, masters, and teachers in that medicine and craft. And just for the record too, my land is surrounded by cow fields, which, mushrooms grow from cows, manure. So, there'll be mushroom picking days, when we go around, pick fresh mushrooms and bring that into ceremony, yes, we'll be working with a lot of medicines that we're cultivating on the land, and that we're bringing in from different masters and teachers and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I mean, sounds like a really awesome place, and the fact that you have that to offer, and for the people to be able to come and get their healing is amazing as well. Like, what else I want to ask you? Are you going to have like sweat lodges or fire? What is it? What else I do? I did walking on fire. I've done walking on glass. I've done so much. I
Mhm.
feel like I've done too much stuff.
Mhm.
That's what I was like. The plant that I did was I was young, a young girl in my 20s. Yeah, yeah, in my 20s. It was 22 when I did it, so it was not something um, known about back then when I did it. And I took a bus from Arizona to go to Lake Oakland. And I met this gentleman. His name at the time was Baba Green, and he used to make portals, crystal portals at the time. So it was a good gentleman, 7 7 feet. Never met nobody that looked like me that was 7 feet scared of a Jesus. And I met
Mhm.
him. Now I talk to the gentleman all the time, but seeing that actual person, now I've seen people 6 feet, but 7 feet is like, and he was the one that said, you know what, um, Dr. D, you need to come down. But at the time, I was the Chef Sussy food alchemist. Food alchemist, you need to come on down. And I'm like, okay, I'm game. I'm silly. When you 20, you like, okay, I'll do that. That's left my kids and my yeah, left my daughter and I got on the bus, didn't leave her literally, but with someone that I was responsible, and I went and I caught the Greyhound bus for the first time, and
Mm.
went there and went through ceremony, and I had a good time. It was scary, because this was different, and I also was raw vegan at the time, so I was worried about me not eating, and I got to go to what was it, a Whole Foods, and they had this restaurant called Raw Gratitude, is a vegan restaurant, and they had good food, and I was able to eat. So that made me feel more comfortable because I was like, I'm raw vegan. I'm going up here. I'm probably going to starve. They're not going to, like all these things. And spirit was like, get out of your fear. Keep going. So I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So when I got there, met the gentleman. He sold crystals, and we talked for a while, and then we went to the ceremony and went to the ceremony. Things happened, different things for different people. Things happened for me, and it was a good experience. And I was like, oh, I would like to do that. But what I found when I got back to Arizona, it took about 10 years. All I kept hearing is ayahuasca, ayahuasca. But it's only one day. So you're saying, so I know they did not prepare properly. So for me and what I was hearing, that made me like, I was like, no. But then again, I know my ancestors make sure that I'm walking with the right people. So I am divinely protected at all times. So when something's not right, they were like, no, you're not doing that. Or no, you're not doing that. So you explained it, which helps a lot better. When I did the Muna Aiki ceremony, it was a very deep ceremony, and it was not done in one day. This ceremony, that's Muna Aiki, means the guardian of the earth, and is from the Andes Mountains in out of Colombia. Um, and matter of fact, where did she say? It's Lima and going up, like in the mountains where we went and we did ceremony. But it was not, again, it was not one day. This was a 8-week process. And I mean 8 weeks, but they were with appropriate teachers, elders, and they did ceremony. It wasn't just like, oh, here you are, like we're quick to give a certificate without seeing people if they're really qualified. But they wanted to make sure it made me feel comfortable. So that's why I went ahead and did the Muna Aiki ceremony with them. To okay, now I'm a shamanic Muna Aiki gatekeeper, and it comes with responsibility. So and they emphasize that make sure you learn. So that was a blessing to me. So what you're saying is that it takes 30 days. You fast before you come, and the fact that you broke it down, I bet you, all the time everybody hear ayahuasca, nobody's ever heard of that. That you have to go step by step. You have to cleanse. You have to purge. That's what you're doing. You have to purge in order to be able to go and do this. And then even after you purge, when you take it, you're still purging because it's removing the toxins from your body for your mind to be able to accept what's going to be coming to go on a spiritual journey. And what you might see, you might not see it the first, second, or maybe even the third time. Is that correct?
Yeah, indeed, because it's gonna meet you where you are, and basically meet you where you are and take it from there. Everybody's gonna have their own individual experience based upon where you are in your practice and in your life and your journey. Have you done any of your work? So but the point is doing it properly, taking the time to do the proper diet. And it's not just the diet, it's also there's plants and herbs that are given to you prior to that are also cleansing you. And something that I feel that I should bring up right now, just in general, two things. One is, like Americans, we do not. I don't even anyway. Americans don't do any deparasiting. Like the rest of the world is so hip to deparasiting. Everybody knows that. Obviously, it's like a no freaking brainer. But like Americans, you could go a whole lifetime and never do a deparasite. In terms of deparasiting and like cleansing, in terms of your digesting. And once again, those parasites are a big issue that needs to be addressed and looked at, taken seriously. So I love the idea of, in terms of those systems and cleaning, the first system you need to clean is your digestive system. And with that, taking those parasites out, and not just tapeworms, there's multitude of freaking different, parasites. And they're not just physical things, they're spiritual parasites too. And so there's a lot of, and they're also affecting the way you think and the way you, and a lot of stuff you do, you don't even know it's the parasites that are working you from your second mind, or your first mind as they call it, which is your gut. And that reminds me too that over there in Colombia there's so many fermented drinks. There's chicha, there's guarapo, there's masato, there's all these fermented drinks. And you know those fermented drinks, those probiotics, with that intention and that connection to those fermented drinks, bringing them into your first mind, into your stomach, into your gut, and having the proper fauna, having the proper environment. I feel like that's something that's really important that needs to be considered. Our connection to fermented drinks, because since the beginning of time, before the refrigerator, we drank fermented drinks. That was just a normal way of life, and it's something that has been lost. And I could get into that, but the point is, bringing back fermented drinks is important. And another thing too, being aware of your blood type. Being aware of your blood type and your diet, your proper diet, because the whole idea of this, diet that they have us on over here is just like we're eating a lot. Look, I'm gonna tell you right now. You asked me about food in Colombia. I eat like a king over there. In this country, I fast as much as possible. I keep it simple, keep it tight, because everything is full of chemicals, toxins, and it's just like, what do you eat over here? You know what I'm saying? I don't even want to eat. I'm fasting, and I've been here for like, this is why I look so. I'm already skinny, but my point is, yeah, I fast. I don't even want to eat the foods over here. What are you gonna eat? The fish got mercury. The this got steroids or antibiotics or hormones or GMO, or it's just toxic. Let me tell you another thing too, because these are just little quick things. Like, everybody brushes their teeth with their toothbrush in the morning. If you know about homeopathy, the fastest place to absorb, anything is in your mouth. So guess what? So every day when you brush your teeth with your fluoride toothpaste, you get your daily dose of fluoride. So they get you in your mouth with your daily dose of fluoride, which calcifies your pineal gland, in addition to who knows what else, a whole bunch of things. And get this one, sister, not to get graphic or anything, but the toilet paper, or the second place where you absorb the fastest, is the genitalia, is the anus. And
Yes.
guess what? They got you swiping with forever chemicals in the toilet paper.
No, we don't do that.
So you know what I'm saying? So they're getting you in your mouth with the fluoride toothpaste, and then they're getting you in the way out with the toilet paper and the forever chemicals.
Yeah.
And then so it's like you're just immersed the same way you're immersed in the poisons and the toxicity and the nonsense over here. Over there is the opposite. You're immersed in the nature, in the beauty, in the grace, in the healing. You know what I'm saying? You're like in the medicine, in the sacred, in the ceremony. You're immersed in such beautiful. And over here, you're just immersed in the toxins, the density. So for me, I'm very mindful of these things. The idea of your awareness expanding is becoming aware of all of these things, and becoming aware of how, there's a biblical term when they say, be aware of the devil's devices.
Usher.
You know what I'm saying? Like, be aware of the devices that are being used to trap and snare you, to destroy you. Because you know what? It's not even it's, for them. It's not profitable to just kill you. They got to milk it. You know, and they milk it with bad health and all the chemicals and cancer and all this stuff. Like a lot of this stuff, with proper diet could like remove a lot of stuff, a lot of issues you're dealing with. Can just be just proper diet. So going back to that meta diet and cleaning all those 9 systems of the body, you know, um, that to me is like standard procedure. So like let's say 9 months, right? 9 months, 9 systems of the body. In terms of that first year, body being earth element. You see, so that whole year is the body. Yeah, we're gonna deal with the mind, we're gonna deal with the heart, we're gonna deal with the spirit, but the core anthem of the year is earth. So we're gonna deal with the body. We're gonna go through those 9 systems, and so that when we go to the next element, you know, you'll be purified and ready to receive the medicine on another whole level. Let me just, I'm just gonna mention this too. Like with my medicine, my personal medicine, what I offer to the people is called Rebirthing Genesis. Is a psychosomatic, emotional, traumatic release, cleansing, purging, defragging of your energetic field, activation of your spiritual anatomy, expansion of your energetic field to receive the frequency and the download. It's extremely powerful, extremely transformational. It's the major component is the breath. So I work with plant-based medicine. I work with animal-based medicine, but Rebirthing Genesis is your breath. So it's non-denominational. It's it doesn't affect, whether whatever your spiritual practice or religion or whatever you believe in, we all breathe. And what I offer is a medicine that can take you to where ayahuasca and the other medicines take you to, but it's through the breath. So that's like on a foundational level. That's what I offer to the people, and then we could stack, the ayahuasca, the peyote, the wachuma, the bufo, and the other medicines that also are available as well. So, and all that to say, what we're gonna be offering is very deep. But look, you don't have to be there for a whole year to receive this. I don't know if you ever heard of the New York Open Center. Okay. Well, it was a place in New York City. It was a non for profit. And what they would have is a year-long catalog. And in that catalog, it'll be like this week is this teacher or this medicine or this ceremony or this elder or this practice or this artist or this artistic learning, whether it's learning whatever, knitting, learning how to work with leather goods. My point is, I want to create that over there in Colombia, where we're gonna have a whole year long calendar connected to the lunar cycle. So there'll be certain things that are going to be full moon activities, certain things that are new moon activities, certain things that are, for this season, for this solstice or equinox and so forth. And it'll be a whole year catalog. So they'll have all year to pick what week, what day, what medicine, what teacher, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to work with? Now you could be there for the whole year and go through the in-depth, or you could just be there for that month or that week or that weekend, or and just receive what you're going to receive based upon what we have to offer. And it'll be all laid out real clear. um and yeah, so yeah, we're making it simple. Listen, I'm all about the diaspora. I'm all about my aboriginal, indigenous, my people, the people. I'm here for humanity. I'm here for everybody. But at the end of the day, I got a special place in my heart for my people of color. Once again, aboriginal, indigenous. And this is what I'm gonna say to the haters. God, if a woman was raped and that woman was violated, robbed, exploited, and she wanted to sit down with other women without men present, and she wanted to basically connect and go through a healing process with other women, would anybody have a problem with that? And most likely folks will not have an issue with a woman sitting with other women that have been violated and exploited and going through their healing process. And nobody could tell that woman, well, you've been healing for a week now. It's time for you to, or you've been healing for a month now. No, there's no time limit. You let that woman and those women go through their process. And when they're done, they're done. You honor and respect that. If you want to really be of service and if you really are about this, you honor and respect that. So I look at us people of color as because we're reflections of literally the earth, whether it's the copper tone, whether it's the black, the richness of the earth is in our melanated skin. And with that being said, we are manifestations of the earth. We are the voice piece of the earth, the guardians of the earth. And with that being said, whether men or women, we need to go through our process. We've been exploited, we've been robbed, we've been, genocided, gentrified, and raped and pillaged as a people, individually and collectively. So we need to take that time to go through our process of healing. And you know what? And folks should respect that and honor that. There's nothing wrong with us going through our process of healing. So with that being said, in terms of self mastery is reparations, in terms of holistic justice, in terms of the land and celestial seed and the work that I'm doing there. I love the idea of you once again just creating that space, that incubator for New Earth, that space and place for us to break bread, to come into ceremony, to celebration, to come together. You know what? A friend of mine, a brother that I'm parlaying with, he said a word from the '60s. He said togetherness, and I'm like, damn man, I never even really heard that word, togetherness. When do we we never you hear the word unity, but you never hear that word togetherness. Like we don't have spaces and places where there's that sense of togetherness, and there is no sense of togetherness. And, it's not there. It just doesn't exist. So once again, creating a space where we can cultivate togetherness, connection, once wisdom, and I could go on and on. I could go on and on. I'll stop right there though. Unless you have a question or whatever you want, Dr. D.
No, I mean, this is good. I mean, you gave out a lot of information, and you're taking volunteers, right? So, people that want to volunteer, like, what are some other things that people can do? Supposing to support you and this cause and what you're doing in Colombia. Tell us some
Okay.
other things that they can do to support you.
Well, you know what? Let me just you just said something right there. Volunteering. That right there is awesome because it's an opportunity for us to really connect and exchange on a deeper level and for you to go through your process. Just for the record, volunteers, we offer breakfast, complimentary breakfast and lunch, and whatever activities and just for the record, on our land we have a river with a forest reserve. We have multiple streams and creeks. We have farmland. We have land that we're building infrastructure, our gardens. So my point is, we have a lot going on over there, and we definitely need support. So volunteers are all welcome. In other ways will be when we're hosting retreats, gatherings, and ceremonies. But in particular, retreats is another way. And I also want to create, I love the idea of time, the village, number one, the idea of the eco village, but creating tiny houses. So we'll have tiny house rentals and tiny house timeshares. And the timeshare is something that you would heard about like in the '80s and whatnot. And I like the idea of bringing back the timeshares where folks can invest in a particular amount of time on the land. And we were actually offering in the in the midst of that. Let me just say this: we're in the process. We have 6 acres right now, and we're in the process of acquiring another 3 acres. But the other 3 acres that we're acquiring has the original access and entry point to the land. So it's
Okay.
not just another 3 acres to get 3 acres. It's actually getting the original access and entry point to the land, which is critical and important, because so that we could fully activate the full expression of the project. So we're in the midst of that right now, and I've been running a GoFundMe. A long story short, I came here last year to work, and I worked. Listen, the work that I've been doing in terms of this land project, to be honest, has been just me doing on my grind, handling my business, doing what I got to do by any means necessary, holding it down for dolo. There is no, I don't have no sponsors. There's no big donors. There's no support. And to be honest, I can appreciate it now, but for many years I grew up on some, I just do what I got to do, and I learned to move in silence as well, you know um and just do what I know is important. And let me just, I guess, say this real quick about that. In terms of this land, I received the vision the calling to come to Colombia when I was in Haiti. I received the calling to come to Colombia, and that was under the influence of medicine. And that was in 2013. I didn't get to Colombia until 2015. 2 years later, it's like I said, the journey, the migration. Eventually, I got down there, and in 2015, I met my people that actually is my neighbor now. But my point is, 3 weeks before COVID, I was chilling out with a Jaguar elder, Witoto, by the name of Furuyama, who's Abuelo Rodolfo, who's a Jaguar elder. I'm sitting from the Amazon. I'm parlaying with the brother, with the elder, and he pulled me by the ear spiritually, and he said, "It's time for you to deja de estar haciendo vueltas. Stop, doing these in terms of my migrations and not being grounded and being that rolling stone. Basically, it's time for me to plant the seed, get to the land. You know, you know, if I'm gonna have my family, have my wife, have my family, build my home, build my maloca, my spiritual house. But the point was, plant the seed. It's time to get to the land." And after 30 years of being on the road, it resonated, and it was like, you know what, that makes sense. And lo and behold, not very long afterwards, literally like a week or so later, my neighbor ended up calling me and inviting me to this land. I went to the land, and after bearing witness to the sunrise, the sunset, and putting an offering, that's another thing, putting an offering, what they call a pagamento, sitting with the elders around the fire, presenting my intention. Why am I there? But most important, putting that offering to the land, and me realizing this is where I wanted to be. Long story short, I left there to Panama, and 2 weeks later, boom, COVID, world lockdown, the world shut down. So here, see, the world shut down, but guess what? I knew where I needed to go. I
Okay.
knew where I needed to be. So I'm literally, the world shut down. The festival that I was in Panama came out on Vice. They did a documentary. It's called The Last Festival on the Planet, and we were the last people to find out that the world was shut down. I immediately got out of there, got out of Panama, ended up going to Mexico, to the Yucatan, and then from there I got to Oaxaca. So I'm chilling out in Oaxaca, and all of a sudden I see that the George Floyd protest kicked off in the United States. And at that point, I realized, basically the shit was popping off. And at that point, I realized, obviously the clock was ticking, and it was work to do. I knew where I needed to go, which was Colombia. And I knew exactly where the land was. And guess what? And I had a price tag too. So I was like, it's time to get to work. My whole journey prior to that was just getting by, and to be honest, when I went to being barefoot for 15 years, I gave up all my material belongings. So I didn't have money and I didn't have material belongings. I was a rolling stone and with my bag and just going on my journey of healing. Anyway, all that to say, I knew where I needed to be, and that's when the clock started ticking. So while everybody was in quarantine and lockdown, I was still whipping around, ripping. I was moving, I was moving. I was not in quarantine, in lockdown with the masses. I was on my grind, handling my business because I knew where I needed to be and what needed to be done. With that being said, the following year, I bought the first 3 acres, and the year after that, I bought another 3 acres, and now I'm ready to get the original access entry point with another 3 acres and fully activate this project. So I haven't stopped, since COVID, I've been on my grind, making moves, and I've been quiet because you know what? I'm not waiting for nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not trying to, and I'm not here to try to convince and convert nobody. My energy is focused on my land and the reality and my purpose. I'm not here to waste energy having a debate and having a, anything other than, you know what, doing what I know I need to do. And if everybody did their part in terms of doing what they got to do in terms of spirit. You said something earlier, sister. You said because you went on your journey to visit that shaman over there and do the medicine, and you didn't let the fear get the best of you. And what I'm saying is there's four universal principles to warriorship. I wrote the book. I'm gonna just pull out a copy real quick.
There you go.
So in terms of the book, the Spiritual Warrior Manifesto, the first universal principle is to follow your heart, which is what you did. But to follow your heart without fear or doubt, you must master your mind. You see, because if you would have let your mind get the best of you or your ego get the best of you in terms of fear and doubt and confusion and procrastination, you wouldn't have went and did what you had to do. You were actually following your heart, which is your spirit, your intuition, the ancestors, however you want to call it. But that's the forces that walk with you and that were guiding you, and you were able to listen to the whisper and not allow your mind or the fear or the doubt to stop you from doing what you need to do, which deep down in your heart and soul you needed to do. And I would suggest that folks begin to tune into that force, into that intuition, and honor it. You know, like in terms of the conflict going on within ourselves, folks don't want to follow their hearts because they got to pay bills. Like what's going on right now? We're at a very critical, transformational, powerful point in humanity's existence. Right now, it's go time. You see, one of the things is about my journey. I've been walking in the mystery and in the unveritable and to the unknown for decades. So I exist in the unknown, in the mystery. It's like I'm used to it, not knowing where I'm going to be, where I'm going, why. You know what I'm saying? But just trusting in self, trusting in the universe. There's something to that. And it's helped me and prepared me for this time right now. Because now, as all of humanity is being pushed into the unknown, into the mystery, guess what? I'm at home. I'm at home in the midst of that. But everybody else is going through it's challenging because folks are not ready to step into the unknown. Let me just say this. There was a time when you could put you would have your 5-year business plan, and it was very logical. You would have your 5-year business plan, and and it's still good to have your 5-year business plan. But what I'm saying is now you could barely think 5 months. Like we don't even know what's going to happen 5 months from now. Because we're living in a time where it's so transformational and there's such an upheaval that's going on that folks cannot even figure out what they're going to do in 5 weeks. Like we don't know. Like there's so much things that are going on a geopolitical, economic, environmental, psychological, cultural level that it's very difficult unless you're grounded. And this is where spiritual discernment comes in. Spiritual discernment is what allows you to navigate in the midst of the storm and the madness. You know, and that's another whole story. I'll leave it right there.
Okay. I had to explain to them. Someone said there was too many numbers, so I had to explain the number is Colombia. So if you want to get in
Yeah.
contact, it's on WhatsApp and Signal. So you need to make sure that the country is Colombia, because like
Yeah.
my number was Guam, and then when I went to the states, I changed it from Guam to U.S. So the numbers are different. So just
Let me give the folks a heads up. just the same way, like in the United States, you put a one before the phone number. That one is the code of the United States. Well, in my phone number there, that 57 is the code for Colombia.
Yep.
So the same way you put a one before the 718 or the 1212, over there you put a 57 if you're calling from outside of the country. That's why it's a little more numbers.
Did it in Mexico, lived there, know it. So that's what I said. It's kind of different. Guam, it looks like an American number, so it's all good.
Hmm.
So I thought I'd explain that a little bit. So, wow, we almost been on here 2 hours, and you helped me discover some new things I never knew that I could do about the comment. I was
Mm.
able to put that up there. Before I didn't know how to do that, so I'm grateful for you because now, I mean, I've learned. But I thank you for giving me your time. Yeah, I'm very low.
Yeah.
I'm short, people. Come on, give me a break. I'm
Mm.
short. Like, look, I'm not tall, and I'm not in my other in the other room. I'm in my comfort zone. I'm in my bedroom doing my show.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to see my slippers. I got my teddy bears. My son picked out some tiger slippers for me, so I got them on.
I'm dressed up right now. Normally I'll be without a shirt. Anyway,
Hey,
I'm
it's
comfortable. I'm comfortable. With that being said, Dr. D, I want to say thank you for inviting me, to your podcast. I really appreciated this conversation. Know that whenever you want to holler at me, whenever you want to have a follow up interview, I'm always available for you.
that's another thing I want to ask you before you get off real quick. How is the internet out there where you are?
Solid.
Okay.
If I wanted to be, if I wanted to be, there's no problem with the internet. And I say if I wanted to be because I like the idea of is a fine line to play with, But yeah, we have internet access and so forth. I like the idea of people, in the same way you would fast from food, you would also fast from the internet. But there's also time and intervals where the internet will be used, but it's like let's do it with wisdom. Let's do it with awareness and wisdom because these technologies will have you. Look, I'm gonna tell you right now, fam. There's two people in the world right now. There's either you're scrolling online and you're looking at content and videos and Facebook and IG and TikTok and whatever you're doing, and then there's the people that are creating the content. You're either scrolling or you're creating content. If you're creating content, now you can monetize, now you could promote, now you're a thought leader or an influencer. Um, there's and you can also get your digital nomad visa. So from so you got to pick what you're going to do, and so it's very easy to be caught up in this technology scrolling all day and just being in the midst of that. So I think it is important for us to become, once again, more proactive on the creating content end. So this is my first interview ever, to be honest, Doctor. You know what I'm saying? I've never been interviewed.
Oh,
um
wow. Thank you.
yeah, so this is an honor to be here. It means a lot,
Okay.
yeah.
I do have a question. One says, how long should one do a yoga session?
How long? Listen, the reality is, you could do it in an hour, you could do it in 2 hours. What's also very important is what are you doing internally? There's a thing called the internal arts, because you could be physically doing all the postures, but what are you doing inside? What's going on? That's the magic, that's the power of the practice. What's going on internally, the internal arts. And the first step to that would be your breath. That's your first key. But there's other keys, which is going a little deeper than just the beyond the breath. um I would say there's always this one thing that if I were to suggest to anybody, when you're talking about yoga right now, but whether you're doing qigong or you're doing yoga or tai chi, or whether you're laying on your bed, There's a particular practice and a particular place. I would advise everybody that's listening to this message, if there's this is the last thing I'm gonna leave you guys with. If there's one thing that I leave you with, it is go do a Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent retreat. 10-day silent retreat. They're all over the planet. If you're on the East Coast, there's one over there in Shelburne, Massachusetts, one over there in Jessup, Georgia. They're all over the United States and all over the world. It's a 10-day silent retreat. It's for free, free room and board, free vegan, vegetarian meals for 10 days. They won't accept any donations or they won't accept anything from you until you've experienced the 10 days. After which, if you want to give a donation, they will humbly receive your donation. They will not receive any donation until you've experienced the 10-day silent retreat. It's called Vipassana. That to me is the foundation of my practice. And through that Vipassana, it has allowed me to understand the depth of the yoga, the medicine, the sweat lodge. Whatever I do, I'm practicing Vipassana because that's the internal arts. And when you understand what you're supposed to do internally, you apply it to whatever you're doing. So when you understand that, then I could do yoga for 15, 20 minutes and it could be deeper than your 2 hour session because I'm going deep. I'm going within.
Okay.
You see, so my little 20-minute little yogic sequence will go deep. So as opposed to somebody that's doing a 2 hour thing and they're not even they're just focused on their look. They're focused on the superficial look of what they're doing, and they're not actually doing the real true work, which is the internal arts. So in terms of how long, it's not a matter of time. You get the time out of the equation. First of all, do what you can do, whatever that may be, even if it's that 20 minutes or that hour or that 2 hours. As long as you're doing it and you're being consistent, that's the key. Consistency, period. You know what I'm saying? And once you're being consistent, you're going to reap the benefits of what you're doing. But if you want to take it to the next level, go do a Vipassana, and there you're going to receive the keys to to the depth of the internal arts, and it's going to transform whatever you're doing, whether you're in a sweat lodge, whether you're in a yoga session, whether you're in a you know uh whatever you're doing, it's going to make it more profound and meaningful.
I like that. Thank you so much because I talked about that years ago when I went to Thailand. I stayed in ashram for 14 days, and I got used to like they took my cell phone and everything, and my son had to stay in a room. And another part, he wasn't with me because he did not. The son was not ready to give up his stuff, and it wasn't for him. It was more for me. So I learned when I went to Guam. I said there is no reason I need to carry my cell phone with me. That someone should have that much access to me. Because back in the day, my grandmother had a telephone. If somebody needs me, they can get a hold of me when I get home. That's how I thought. I mean, I know that's weird to other people, but that's how I work. I had stopped prescribing to cable a long time ago. I watch educational stuff, so for me, TV was not a thing. But then I learned when I got back to the states, the phone, the iPhone is everything, or the cell phone is everything. But for me, I got so used to it because in Guam I don't use my phone like that. I use it when I need to call somebody. Yes, we have WhatsApp, but it stayed home. So when I went out, for my day, I went out for my day. When I came back, I got my messages. And they were like, but you got a cell phone. And I was like, so what? I don't think you should have that much access to me. Maybe that's that selfishness in me, but I think it's geared from being in Thailand, but also not speaking. See, not only did we not have our our um our gadgets, but we didn't speak and we did not communicate with the outside world at all. So we got our 3 meals a day. We did our prayers or whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? They don't force anything on you. This is your volunteering in to do this. And I had the most blast that when I came back, I would have probably not have came out if I hadn't had my son.
Mm.
You know, if I didn't have my son, I would have been like, you know what? I don't have to talk to nobody. I watched them how they collect alms. So I only had one thing is I didn't like that they were not as respectful. The website. Can I put the website on there?
I
Okay.
could I could try to get that up. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Give me a minute. Um.
I'm
So
gonna put that in there right now.
thank you. I that what I did appreciate. Not talking. Even when I have to do something, it was like body language. And remember, I'm an English speaking person. They're speaking Thai, so that's even more complicated to do that. But the thing is, I felt so comfortable. I knew what time I was going to eat. I knew what time I was going to rise. I knew what I was going to do. My breath work, the stretching. I was doing something, and it was productive. Where I think when we get up, we don't productive. Only thing we do is the first thing we grab is our cell phone. Some of us, I know it's not the first thing I do, but we grab our cell phone, or we even have our cell phone with us. Guam, I don't have any electronic gadgets. There were none in my bedroom. They were all in the living room. So even channeling, but I also have things called EF protectors, and I have organites that I have. So I have a pyramid. So it's a you sit in the pyramid that's made out of copper. My pyramid, I think it's the Giza pyramid that I got, but I have so many different pyramids with the organs to protect me from different things, from the EF waves. Like even as I'm sitting here, or even on a computer, I know people might think it's crazy, but I have a couple of these on. You know, I'm gonna keep these. You know what I'm saying? Wherever I go, because I'm dealing with stuff I don't like. Um, I know this is it's a thing of having to do, but I'd rather not do, if that makes sense.
I'm gonna tell you right now, what you're saying is extremely important. It's not casual. It maybe when maybe back in the days, because you got to remember we went from like 3G, 4G, five. We're on 5G going right now. I'm gonna give you a heads up. Like I avoided AI, I avoided the technologies, but guess what? Last year I was in a place where I was isolated in the mountains, off grid, but the place that I was at, they had Starlink satellite high speed Wi-Fi. And I'll tell
What?
you, uh and I said, you know what? All these years, I've avoided the technologies, I avoided AI. I said, you know what? I'm gonna check this AI thing out. I had a powerful experience with AI, but my point was and is that the EMF coming off the freaking computer would hurt my fingers. My fingers would hurt from the EMF.
Right.
Um, because we're dealing with 5G now. It's not it's another thing. And they're already trying to set up for 6G.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Of
affecting
course.
birds and everything else. So,
So it's
oh, this is
serious. So in terms of a Faraday bag, in terms of organite, in terms of there's these are things that are going to be extremely important, not casual. You want to have that, especially if you care about yourself and and those that you love around you. I would definitely, you know, get stronger into these protections from the EMF and protection from this technology, which we don't even know what it's doing to us on a cellular level. And like I said, my fingers were hurting. It's- and that's kind of sad, you
it
know.
is.
And then you got people with Bluetooth little headphones. Like I got a wire on this one. I'm not gonna have no Bluetooth in my head, blasting a signal. And just for the record, if you were to take two cell phones and put them facing one another and put a kernel of popcorn, a kernel in between them, and call those phones, that kernel will pop. It'll become a
Oh,
popcorn
see, nope.
because that's a microwave.
Yeah.
It's like
I
it's
don't
a
have
mini
a
microwave. So
see, all the things you say and people think I'm weird because I say I don't want a microwave in my home. I
oh,
hate the things.
oh hell no. Hell no.
So thank you. You're just
Yes.
validating everything that I'm doing, and people just think I'm just like, I'm gonna say some of the people that I talk to think I'm wackadoodle. They were like, "You don't have a microwave?" I was like, "No."
Oh
Hey,
no.
I went out and got me an oven because I was living in a hotel, traveling from Guam and finding a house. So for me, they have microwaves. I made my son unplug it, put it in the closet, told him they can come and get it, and I went out and bought me an oven. And that's when we plugged it in and used the oven. And I know they were like, but I was like, it heats up fast. I don't care.
Mm-mm.
If I had my way, I would have gas. Everything from the oven, like the old fashioned wood stove. I'm that kind of girl.
Yep.
So I'm like, look, the only thing I want that might have the movement is my bed. To sit up in the morning and but lay down at night for me. So that is my electronical thing is my bed. It goes up, it goes down. My feet go up, my feet go down. Um, so that's my thing. But I'm learning these pyramids with these organites are very important. My mate that had passed early on had bought me an EF ray that he got from another brother that you put on the back in the day that you used to put on the back of your phone, and they don't have them anymore. I think Dr. Dilbert Blair had sold them at one time, and that's where my mate had got it from. He's no longer with us. He parted, but he was the one that was helping me get this because the cell phone was a new thing, and I didn't like the cell phone, but I kind of needed the cell phone. But I would take it with me. But when I got to Thailand, it became a whole. It was a different reset for me. You know what I mean? Especially going to the ashram and doing the quiet, not speaking. And when I came out, and what I learned, also healing. When I went there, I couldn't walk. I was literally in a wheelchair. When
Mm.
I came back and I went from the wheelchair to these metal um, crutches, after staying there, eating the food and everything, I went from the metal crutches of actually being there, not needing the metal crutches, eating food, being able to walk. I was able to, do stuff. Coming back here, um, I had diarrhea. I was sick and I could feel, and I told him, I literally felt the energy of me touching down here, me getting sick, and the energy. And people told me I'm crazy. So
Mm.
I am so glad I had this conversation. They said, you know what? You're nuts. Um, you're right.
No, no,
You're
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 right on. Listen, sister, you were a vegan back in the days when people weren't even hip, to the word vegan. You were ahead of the curve. And that's the thing about visionaries. Visionaries were basically ahead of the curve. I've been talking about tribes of humanity and the grand gathering of the tribes and the people's sanctuary for almost 2 decades, like 15, 18 years practically. It's like people weren't ready. People didn't understand. Like, like to them, it wasn't, they couldn't comprehend the depth of what I was talking about. But right now, as we go through all this madness on the world, right now, what I'm saying makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it's very logical, now. But you see, that's the thing, so the visionary gets shunned, gets ridiculed, gets is looked at as whatever. But at the end of listen, me being barefoot for like 15 years now, that there's a whole science about it's called grounding, earthing.
yes, yes, yes.
And now they're trying to sell you a little product that you wrap around your toe and plug into, and put it into the ground and
Yes.
whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Come on now. It's like, but now that they're selling it to you, now you're gonna buy it, and now you're gonna, understand the science of it, or at least try to. But listen, like I said, I've been doing that for like 15 years. And anyway, my point is, yes.
Now you've been walking barefoot. Now my thing is, how do you get on a plane With that, do you wear shoes when you're going through the airplane?
Slippers. Definitely having a pair of slippers. And listen, you know what? They tell you to take your shoes off when you go through security. So if you could, it's like if I could take my shoes off when I'm in, going through security, I should be able to walk through with my shoes off, period. But yeah, having a pair of slippers just in case, because going back to the idea of domestication, like these people want you to be domesticated, so they want you to have your shoes on. And just for the record, if you're in a vehicle, if you're in a car and it gets struck by lightning, what happens to you in the car? Nothing. Nothing happens to you because the rubber tires insulate you from the electric strike.
Right,
So
right,
the same thing happens when you have shoes on with the rubber soles. It disconnects you from the ground, so you never get that connection from heaven to earth. So this is a lot that leads to a lot of inflammation and things like that, because folks are their electrical signal is not really getting grounded. That's a problem, bro. Like that's a problem, it's a health issue. And it's just something as simple as just taking off your shoes and putting your feet on the ground, you know. Anyway, like I said, Mama, Dr. D, I'm always available. You just holler at me, let me know. We could have a follow up or whatever. If you want to get into the technologies, if you want to have a discussion on AI or whatever you want to discuss, the land, what's going on, I could give you updates every so often. Definitely. As right now, we're building the infrastructure. We can accommodate like 10 to 12 people right now, but obviously, we want to build up the numbers. You know, it- I could go on and on. We definitely need support. Whether you want to volunteer, whether you could give a donation, it'll be greatly appreciated. The donations go 100% to this land project. And like I said, in terms of holistic justice, self mastery is reparations. In terms of the healing of the nations, the people, through the herb, through the plants, through the earth, through the nature, through the ceremony, the celebration, the art, the music, the wisdom. I'm here to build the bridge. Like Harriet Tubman had folks going up north. Well, we're going south now. You know what I'm saying? We're flipping the script. Where the Underground Railroad is going south.
right.
And that's and you know what? And from this community, our community, we want to hook up and connect with other communities of like mind and spirit. And listen, we're creating our own systems of commerce, barter, trade, and exchange. So this new earth thing, yes, in terms of barter, trade, exchange, commerce of not only products and merchandise, but also medicine, ceremony, ideas, wisdom, creating this new earth, this web of new earth through the communities that are in existence, intentional communities, eco villages, um, yeah. And so for me, coming up north, coming to New York, doing a grand gathering of the tribes is really for me to tune into the people and see where you at. You know what I'm saying? Where are their minds? Where are their hearts? Who's ready? Listen, I got two people, a female and a brother. That since last year I was talking about, because I was in the on the West Coast, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna come to New York. Then they're over here in New York. And I'm like, yo, when I get to New York, I'm gonna help them get their passport, get their things in order so that they can leave with me to Colombia. I've been in New York for like a month, over a month or so, and I still haven't seen these folks because in their hearts they know they want to do it, but their mind and the fear and the doubts got the best of them, and so they're procrastinating, and they're stuck in their fear. And what I'm saying is, yeah, I come to New York, I come up here to tune in to see who's ready, who's willing, who's able, who's really about it. You know what I'm saying? And based upon that, what I've seen is like, folks ain't ready. Folks are not ready. And you know what? And I don't got no time to wait.
Thank you.
I'm on my grind. It's go time. You know what I'm saying? It's go time in terms of you awakening, you going through your process. It's time to do the work, and the work is internal. It's through your thoughts, actions, and deeds. It's very subtle. If you want to get a heads up and you want to do a quantum leap, go do a vipassana. If as a premise, as a foundation, And with that being said, we'll be over there at Celestial Seed, offering the medicine, offering, the healing arts. Anyway, there's just a lot going on. I could go on about this. And yeah, we've been here for like a minute.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go, Mama. I got to,
Okay.
and
All right.
we're
And we're gonna
connected. We're
our
connected.
postal, but we'll we'll connect. I mean, because now it's all good. Everybody
Exactly.
got things to do, and I know that this broadcast will be also on Spotify. Also, that's what I do. So we're going to have some clips. So you'll probably see it on TikTok. So the things that we're talking about. So just so you know, this is getting played out not only here on YouTube. And I think what I should have said, if you like, click subscribe to me, and you will get updates when the show comes. And ring the bell. I don't usually do this, but I'm told I need to, so more people can do that. But we're also on Spotify. We're also on Amazon, and I'm on a lot of podcasters. I didn't realize that my thing was in like five different things until I actually looked. So it's also on Thread. So I have different things. So you're going to see it Instagram, Thread, and Nine. So as long as you see 963B for you, we are there. Um, Eddie says great sharing and portal opening.
Aho,
So
aho, ashe. Mm-hmm.
so it was real good. So we're going to say good night, and I'm going to say blessings to everyone. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate, I appreciate. And we are going to give in a wonderful thing going out. So I appreciate everyone. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are on our way out of